It's funny, like a couple times I've gone and I have young daughters and I did their career day at school. It's so funny. You bring in like the YouTube plaque, right? For 100,000 subscribers. And you think these kids saw Elvis, like they're going nuts, right? And then you realize like YouTubers to them nowadays are what movie stars were to us, or, you know, professional athletes or whatever it may be. They all like aspired, like they all want to be YouTubers. But what if I could tell you guys one thing, it's just share stuff because you love it, not because you want to be a content creator. Like create content because you love it and you want other people to see it. If we didn't absolutely love creating golf content, it would be impossible. It would be a grind. We would be hating sitting down in front of the computer. Oh, I got to edit another video, but we love doing it. So that's what creates that longevity. It's cool, the perks that come with being a content creator at a certain level, but don't do it just because you want to be a content creator.
Mike and Frank Fasano on the Content Clubhouse podcast, the first family reunion of sorts here on this show. But in addition to sharing a last name, you two share the title of co-founders of a little something called Golficity, one of the biggest brands in golf content. And I call it a brand because with a massive YouTube channel, social following, podcast, blog, and everything else, I'm not sure what else to call it, but I'm curious, whoever wants to go first here, what would you guys call it? How do you describe what Golficity is?
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
It's truly been an evolving thing over the last 12 years. You know, it's funny. We're cousins. You know, we started this because I was getting back into golf. Mike was just starting to play golf. We wanted to document the journey. Like we just figured we'd share it with other people. And that was back in the day when like people were writing blog posts, right? So like we were a blog then. And then shortly thereafter, like we became a podcast like a year or two later because we were always talking golf, you know, and we're just like, let's chat about, let's try this new thing called podcasts. And then once we were doing the pod for a little while, we started getting these great invites, you know, through media to do different experiences. And we're like, oh, we got to show people this. This is so cool. And so we started picking up cameras, and then all of a sudden we were a YouTube channel, you know? So it's always evolving. And you're just like, yeah, I don't know, we put ourselves under the label, I guess, content creators at this point. It's like this all encompassing thing, but to us, it's just been like a wild ride that we just let it take us wherever it takes us.
It's been fun. There's no question about it. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, and we're coming up on almost 15 years of running this. You know, that's how crazy it is. And we had the good laugh of thinking about the podcast. And the podcast is something that we started doing just naturally. Frank and I were talking golf weekly. So we decided to turn it into a show. We said, let's just talk golf and we'll put a podcast out. And Frank was doing a long commute at the time. So, you know, he was into pod. I wasn't into it. I wasn't really listening to him yet, but I'm like, hey, this could be pretty cool. This is something new. So then that's how that started. And like, you know, we're still doing that show weekly. You know, if you can believe it, I think we're like almost 600 episodes, which is wild.
6, yeah.
Over 6. I mean,
yeah.
But just staying consistent and just, I guess the most important thing, we just been having fun with it. So,
yeah, I think that's got to be, especially in this, you know, in the game of golf, right? Like, I think what you talk about having fun, like that's got to be the guiding light, I guess. But rather than just assume that, is kind of that what has guided you guys throughout this process and this evolution? Is that still kind of the goal? You know, as soon as this quits being fun, you guys will find something else to do?
Like we joke, like if you can't have fun doing this, like what can you do? Like, you know, the experiences we get are just incredible. But I think it's like the cornerstone for content. Like you have to love it, because it is so much work and it's so much that goes on behind the scenes. And you start getting to where you're editing 600 podcasts, you're editing thousands of videos. You know, I think we've put out like 5,000 posts on Instagram. I got like a notification the other day. It's like, that was your 5,000 posts. You know, it's crazy. So it's funny. Like a lot of people approach us sometimes asking like, hey, I want to film some of my rounds and like, I want to start posting them. And I'm like, that's great. Just like do it because you love it. Right. Because it's also not easy. Like sometimes like you're out there, you're a golfer, you want to like play and you know how tough it is to be distracted, and imagine having to set up 3-4 cameras and flying a drone in the air. So like for us, it's just been like, we've always loved it. We have an equal passion for playing the game as much as we do creating content. because if you don't, like, some people will create content to get like free stuff from brands and stuff like that. And it's nice, it's flashy, but like, trust me, if you don't love it, it's going to fall apart really quick. So for us, we've always said like we would make these videos if no one was watching. We're doing it because we love the creative process, and we love being able to document, and having now over a decade to look back on and just watch our own journey has been incredible. So even if we made the content for ourselves, we'd be happy. But it is nice that people have attached to it, and we're seeing people start to watch it and reach out to us. And that's, I think, the real kind of, it's the icing on top.
I feel like we're doing that now. I mean, we started, that many years ago filming at Muni's. Now we've got Wingfoot, Shinnecock, but every Friday, Frank and I are booking rounds at Muni still, because we just love to get out there. We'll leave the cameras in the car, take our phones out, we can't not make content when we're out there. It's just in our blood. So even if the cameras are in the car, the phones will come out, but we'll just go play, and we're just making golf part of our life every single week. Whether there's a big event we're going to, or if it's just, hey, let's go book a round at the local Muni, we're still doing it. So
yeah,
that's the cool
part.
I'm
curious, over the years, right, especially as you start to develop a larger and larger audience, how do you, I guess, reconcile making content, obviously, right, that you want to watch, that you want to create, versus what may do well or not as well with your audience? Kind of how has that thought process changed over the years for you guys?
It's honestly the hard part, because and I'm not gonna say like anybody's immune to it. Like we got caught up in a while of making some content that we just felt like people wanted to watch. And like we saw like around COVID time, the explosion of content creators in golf as golf grew, and the landscape is always changing. And it is tempting, like when you see a certain style of golf content start to work on YouTube or otherwise, it's tempting to go down that rabbit hole and be like, hey, it works for them, it'll work for us. But what we realize more and more is it's not the reality. It's not the content. It's the diversity of content. Everyone kind of making different types of stuff. So I feel like in some ways we got a little bit off track, putting a lot of energy into trying to do what we thought people liked. And it started to get away from what we really like to do. But we were also in the good fortune of like being in a position of being established enough that we don't have to like chase views per se. And I think that's the slippery slope that people go down. But just in the last 2 years, we've kind of reset. We did a hard reset, and we started with this series that we love called Drive. And we were like, we're going to do a style that we want to do. And honestly, if nobody likes it, it is what it is. We're just going to run this gamble, because it's kind of like the anti what you see now with high attention and quick hits and quick cuts and stuff like that. We're like, we're going to do a series it's more meant to be watched on a television. It's more of a long sit and watch and that type of stuff, because it's really what we liked. And lo and behold, it's done really well for us. So it was like going and just doing what we felt was right. I would never blame any content creator for that, of trying to do something because you see it working for someone else. It's such an easy thing to do, but the reality is then all the content starts to look the same. And I think the strength of golf content, all content, is the diversity. The fact that everyone does it different, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to go into YouTube and you can't even tell whose channel it is because all the thumbnails are the same. I think getting to a point where I watch these guys for this and those guys for that, and like we've always said, it's not a zero-sum game. We want to create content where like all content creators do well, because we all have something different to show and share. So yes, it's been something that's been hard to kind of stay true to yourself and do what you think is the right thing for you, but it does pay off, I think, in the long run.
Definitely. So to that point, right, you talk about the diversity and kind of making sure, I guess, kind of in the subtext of that is like making sure, right, that you stand out, or that you're different, or that you occupy a certain niche that your audience can come to know and expect from you, which, hey, over 15 years, you guys have definitely found that. But in a world where every knucklehead has a social channel and a podcast, like looking directly at me here too, like you got to find your own voice, right? What makes you unique? What makes your content stand out? What is the voice of Golficity? How would you define that? And I guess more interestingly, how did you find it? How'd you settle on that?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think look, a large part of it was realizing as us being the core audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of just saying like, listen, there's got to be other people out there like us, who are around our age, around our point in the journey and stuff like that. So like if we can just stay authentic to that and like speak authentically, like we've never tried to pretend to be something we're not. We don't try to be better golfers than we are. In fact, we lean into it because we know there are more golfers like us that play to our level than to play at a higher, more elite level that you see with some of the great golfers on YouTube or otherwise. So it's just like if we can kind of stay true to like what would we like to see, then the audience that kind of builds around it will be very similar to that. So we just think of ourselves when we're talking to camera. We think of who's out there like us that would like that. And that's how we feel like we've kind of differentiated and stood out as much as we could.
It's funny because, like Frank said, you can't chase the views, and we did try. Like, it's funny how many times we attempted those silly challenges, 1v1, front nine, back nine. Like, we went for it. Like, in the YouTube world, we went for it. And we weren't happy doing it. And then we kind of fell back to that. We're like that filmmaker, in our blood. So that's the cool part. So we're able to play a sport we love and be able to do the filmmaking, which we also love. That's what leads to this Drive series, which is like our favorite thing in the world to do. And lining up the series for that, planning that, just knowing what's on the horizon, some of the resorts or courses, and even off the beaten path. It doesn't have to be high end. Like, we love finding the hole in the wall, lower budget golf trips that guys are looking for. Again, putting, our content in the same audience as what we are. So, I mean, I think that's important for us, and that's just how we do it.
And I think for other content creators, just understanding, like, lean into what you have that makes you different. Like, it might even just be your geography, right? Like, for us, we're like, okay, we're here in the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. There's some great golf here, but it's not necessarily highly showcased. Other people may be there in California, Arizona, Florida. So I think, if you live in Wisconsin, like, show us Wisconsin golf. I think that that's something that can help a lot of content creators stand out, is like, give us your local voice, like show us what you have there, and you can kind of just stand out just by being where you are. And I think some people overlook that. They think, oh, I got to fly out to Pebble to launch my channel. Like, okay. And there's a billion other Pebble Beach, videos out there, but like, build a nice core audience in your area. And it turns out that like now we're holding a lot of events and things in our area because when it really comes down to it, a lot of our audience are from our area, because especially in the start, we were covering a lot of local golf courses, and people find us on YouTube because they're going to play, Crystal Springs here in New Jersey. So they look it up on YouTube and they see our video, and we're the only ones at the time who did a video there. So I think understanding that for content creators, like, what's your strength? Your strength might just be being able to show people something that no one else has because you live there or you have access to it.
Well, I want to drill down, Mike. You mentioned the idea of like filmmaking, but of course, and correct me if I'm wrong, that is not what you guys were when you first set out, right, on this Golficity journey. At what point was it the advent of like kind of post-COVID YouTube golf explosion? Like, at what point did you realize, hey, let's grow this into something else?
Believe it or not, pre-COVID, 2019, we went out to Scotland, and we shot a 10-course series over 6 days. 10 courses, 10 videos. It was real low budget, just Frank and I with a couple point-and-shoot cameras. But we did that kind of filmmaking style then. And that's what we were like leaning into hard. And for some reason, like, the COVID craze hit and we just drifted off of it. So I think that might have been our biggest regret. But it was in that moment. I think Frank and I have always been creative by nature growing up, just like the hobbies and stuff that we've done. I used to make music videos on GarageBand and Final Cut, when I was like a teenager. I just loved kind of doing that stuff. So, getting the opportunity to like shoot a video like we just put out of Ronamink, to me, that's one of our most premier videos. I mean, that really tells the story of, all right, this is what Drive is. This is what Golficity is trying to accomplish in these videos. That to me is like the vision, the mission. So
yeah, and it's not unlike golf. It's like you're a golfer. You just constantly want to get better. It's like, what can I learn? What new shot? What new trick? And it was like that with with us with videography. Like we start off with like point and shoot cameras, not knowing what we were doing. And you got, YouTube works both ways, as we share, but we learn there too. So it's just like, how can I do this better? Like what equipment can I invest in? And just learning lighting techniques for the podcast, and it just, as we go, we just every time trying to level it up a little bit. And then you aggregate that over 10 years and you could see the progression that way. But each time it's just like every video, like how do we get a little bit better?
Yeah. From that standpoint, again, you guys are now in so many different arenas, spaces, whatever you want to call it, from video to print to the podcast to all of that. Would you still say that the video, I guess, is at the heart of what you guys are trying to do? Or I guess from take us inside like the I don't want to call it a corporate structure at Golficity, but it kind of is. I mean, you guys are huge. Like, how do those all things? How do you reconcile all of these things? What's the priorities? How do you figure out who you guys are across all these different platforms?
I think it's like staying true to who we are, but being ready to adapt when platforms evolve, because that's what's always happening, right? Like, I still remember when like Instagram launched, and like we got to get on that, got to get ahead of it, like because it's just like it's new ways for people to find an audience, for people to consume it, and then just adapt to that. So, yes, in the short answer, videos kind of the leader for us right now, but that's largely also because of the fact that that's just where most people consume things now. Like, we're seeing a world where people are less apt to read an article on a website and more apt to consume the information in 30 seconds on TikTok. So it's like, we'll shift and be like, we're still giving the information, but we're doing it a little bit differently. Even the podcast saw a huge shift. Like we flip-flopped where we were mostly audio downloads and people listening to it in their car, to now making it really a video show and switching it to YouTube. And now people are sitting down and watching it that way. So it was like 70-30, and then it was 70-30 the other way, audience wise. And it opened up new avenues for us, because like as it being a visual show, we could start to put more, show headlines, show what we're talking about rather than just describing it. So we kind of follow the way that people are consuming things and try to like really stay ahead of that and understand that landscape from a content creation business standpoint. I think it's important to understand how people want to consume things, even just clipping down the podcast into short clips to share on social. We nowadays you'll have people who will, hilariously, they'll watch 21-minute clips of a podcast rather than watching a 20-minute podcast, right? But I don't care how you want to consume the content. If we're able to resonate with you, if you want to watch in clips or listen to it or sit down and watch the full show. So to us, it's just understanding that everyone has different preferences of how they want to interact with your content, and then giving them those options.
Yeah, you guys have been at this for, again, you mentioned almost 15 years, which, like, not to make anybody feel old here, but in the context of golf content creation, that is like the
We're
origin.
the old guys, you could say.
Yeah. So, but again, that I think speaks to an incredible longevity that doesn't really exist much, especially in, again, this fast-paced kind of media landscape. What would you, and it sounds like you talked a lot about the ability to adapt to the way that audiences are consuming content, but what are some other things you would credit you guys for being able to adapt and evolve? I guess what has led to your longevity and place, again, at the top of the golf content world that has changed so much in 15 years? How have you done it?
Ooh. Well, first and foremost, our wives for stepping in and letting us travel the world whenever we need to, taking care of the kids, which gets tough, I mean, when you got small families. So, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, it makes it a little bit of a challenge, but I think just staying persistent. If I had to put some on it, and consistent with our process. Frank and I have a great working relationship. Again, we're also family, so we talk a lot. We're always coming up with new ideas. We're always brainstorming, but we're always leaning on each other to get the job done. And we know we can lean on each other. I think that goes with any business, right? A good partnership goes a long way, or a good business, good team. So, I think having that in place all this time, and we've brought in some people, some outsiders, some contractors, some videographers here and there, but they come and go. So Frank and I stick to it. We know our business model, and as people come in and leave, we just stay focused and we just, eye on the prize is what we kind of say. So,
Yeah, and I think the real one cornerstone to longevity is, as I mentioned earlier, you have to love it. It's funny. Like a couple times I've gone and I have young daughters, and I did their career day at school, and it's so funny. You bring in like the YouTube plaque, right, for 100,000 subscribers, and you think these kids saw Elvis, like they're going nuts, right? And then you realize like YouTubers to them nowadays are what movie stars were to us, or professional athletes or whatever it may be. So they all like aspired, like they all want to be YouTubers. But if I could tell you guys one thing, it's just share stuff because you love it, not because you want to be a content creator. Like create content because you love it and you want other people to see it, and you'll grow naturally. And that was it for us. It's like for the longevity is like, if we didn't absolutely love this, if we didn't absolutely love creating golf content, it would be impossible. It would be a grind. We would be hating sitting down in front of the computer. Oh, I got to edit another video, but we love doing it. So that's what creates that longevity. So I always tell people like, yeah, it's cool, the perks that come with being a content creator at a certain level, but don't do it just because you want to be a content creator. Like, and really pick the thing that you're most passionate about. Like I tell these kids, like, if you're passionate about like sewing, like then share that. Don't put a channel together where you're doing pranks because you see other people doing that. Cause it might be fun for a little while, but it's not your thing. Find your thing and share it. Like our thing is golf. We share it. It's that simple. And we could do it forever.
Yeah. Well, what was the point for you guys? Again, I imagine by the time you get the 100,000 follower plaque, that's a pretty clear indication. Like, okay, we've accomplished something here. But I'm curious, what was an earlier moment, maybe not as obvious to somebody from the outside, where you two looked at each other and was like, "There's something here."
Yeah, I mean, for me, what jumps out is 2018 when we first turned the cameras on, and we went to an event where I ended up winning a invitation to the Arnold Palmer Bay Hill Pro-Am. And it was like the first like almost major thing that happened to Golficity since starting, being that whole experience, going down to Orlando and then being able to film it, put it on our YouTube channel, and then create all the content around that went with it, all the short pieces of content and everything. At that point for me, I felt like, all right, I think we're onto something here. The fact that we're here now, I think that might have been our first of maybe 10 dozen pinch me moments we've had over the last decade. Yeah. And for me, I would say that would be it for me. But,
there's so many, I honestly, half the time we don't believe it. Like we're still going on these trips. Like we were in Cabot up in Nova Scotia. It was like gorgeous. And we're standing there and we're like, is this real life? Like, are we doing this? Like, we still don't believe it. It's funny. Like we were at the Ryder Cup and we were inside the ropes because we were media, and there's all these people asking us for autographs. I'm signing these autographs. I'm like, guys, are you sure? Like maybe you just, because I'm in the inside, you think I'm a player. Like I'm not. And like, no, we know who you are. We want your autograph. I'm like, I just couldn't believe it. I'm signing them. I'm like, okay. So like to us still, like, I think we get so ingrained in what we're doing. Like it's never that moment where you feel like, I don't know, you made it. And I think that kind of helps us stay super motivated to never kind of feel like, oh, we can back off now. We've done it. And just staying super grateful. Like I said, every trip, I can't think of one where Mike and I don't say to each other, like, this real life, this is incredible. No one's going to believe this,
Yeah, I guess one of my kind of list of things was like, if there were something you could go back and tell the Mike and Frank of 2011 or whenever you guys first started that, kind of what would that be? But I imagine you boys are about to have a hell of a great run here. Might be part of it. But is there anything else kind of that you would go back and tell those guys?
Stick to the guns of what you started doing. Like I said, I was probably like the biggest regret is veering off that course of following the passion and chasing the views, I guess, in that COVID craze. But we've learned so much. Like Frank said before, we didn't go to school for any of this. I mean, we're business majors, no film, no nothing. So, yeah.
Which also, honestly, it comes as a huge benefit. It's what you don't see with content creation is the stuff behind the scenes. you know, the relationships that you develop, the way to learn to talk to different brands, to talk to other media outlets, to really stay ahead of that. I think that that's a skill that a lot of content creators could benefit from, is having a little bit of that background and that knowledge. And or if you don't, getting someone on the team who does, because golf, it's a very small world. You want to make sure that you're making the right connections and doing all those types of things. So I think it's an important thing to know too.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned maybe finding somebody who does. Has the Golficity team, you know, when it started with just you guys, I would like to hope that it's not just still you two guys doing all of this. That'd be an awful lot of work. How has kind of the structure of Golficity changed over the years?
Go ahead, Frank.
It's mostly just us, but we've had some really incredible people plugging in here and there. Like we have a guy, Tom, who's helping us out right now with some photo and some videography. The reality is there's just only so many cameras we can hold while we're out there. For a while we had an editor who was helping us when we were really in the thick of it, putting out lots and lots of videos every week, helping out with that. A guy, Zach, who's been helping out with us for a long time when we need extra hands on a drone. And there's been those types of things. But I think the core piece of it has just been, as Mike mentioned earlier, us working together so well. Like, we have very complementary skill sets. Mike is very good at stuff, and he enjoys doing some stuff that I hate and I'm terrible at. And it just works the other way. Like, and the fact that we always know who's strong at what and are able to divide and conquer constantly. Like, if we have a trip coming up, Mike will know, just having it planned to a T, because it has to go off without a hitch, because there's so much going on. There's so much balls in the air. And then I'll handle a lot of the stuff with like the video equipment and ultimately the editing and all that type of stuff. So there's no overlap there. We know where our strengths are. We're able to do that. And because we've done it so long, it's funny. We could do without words. We could look at each other and know what the other guy's thinking. And sometimes you need to do that when you're out there filming on the golf course and be like, hey, did you get that? Yeah, I thought of that. I got that. That's done. Mm-hmm. So having somebody who's a partner of like these alternate strengths really helps.
Yeah. Like, to that effect though, you talk about the relationship that you two have, right? And that almost kind of unspoken understanding of you guys coming at the creative process from a very similar, or at least cooperative kind of standpoint. How difficult is it to, out of necessity, integrate other people into that, right? In terms of like, we have this great idea of what we want to do. I imagine it's tough to bring other people in, even if they are just holding a camera or what have you. How have you worked through that process of making sure new people or people who come in to help you are on the same page creatively?
We're in the middle of that
right now. It
is
tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
It you know why? It's tough for two things. Is one, you want them to plug in and pick up what you want them to do, what your vision is, but also a big benefit of bringing other people is to get their vision too, to get a new perspective. So we try to we do a lot of practice runs and talking through it. Let's say it's a videographer or somebody we're bringing in. We'll tell them like, this is what we're looking for, but we also don't want to constrain them in a box, because they may do something or know something that we never thought of. And they're adding at that point to it. They're not just a robot who's out there. So it'll be a lot of like kind of vetting and talking to people, be like, do they share our vision? Most importantly, do they share our passion? Because we work really hard and hustle a lot. And I think, to me, it's finding that matching attitude and drive that they want to do that too. And if not, if we feel like we're just dragging someone along, that pulls the whole production down, the whole vibe down. So we find somebody who matches in our passion, people who love golf, love content creation, and want to do it. We give them an idea of what we're looking for, but then we also leave it relaxed enough. They'll be like, hey, if you see something, try it. Go get it. Let's see how it works. You know what I mean? And freeing them up a little bit, because you never know what somebody else might be able to add that you never had. You want to add skill sets, you know?
Totally. All right. I know we're kind of coming close on time here, but before I get you guys out of here, you've talked a lot about some of the really cool experiences. Obviously, the Wingfoot hat on. You guys were just there. I'm curious, and what, Mike, you go first, and then if you steal Frank's will have to come up with another one. But just off the top of your head, what's an all-time moment for you guys over the last 15 years?
Oh, so many good ones. So many fortunate invites from guest friends, Pine Valleys, Old Course, St. Andrews, and Whistling Straits and things like that. But I keep
You're
coming
stealing
back
a lot
to,
from Frank right now. By
I'm
the
stealing.
way.
I'm trying to take everyone from, but I know that I'm not going to take his favorite. But Cabot, Nova Scotia. I give that answer to all my buddies when they ask me, because for us everything was perfect. We had sunset, bagpipers, two of the greatest golf courses in the world, some of the great lodging, great food. This is not an ad for them at all. I promise you. It was just probably one of, if not my favorite, golf destinations so far.
Yeah, but luckily it runs pretty deep. It can pick a lot, but the 10 rounds we played over 7 days in Scotland was one of the coolest experiences. It was both of our first trip ever to Europe. There was so many parts of that, and it was so early on our journey. It was that real pinch me, like, how are we doing this? We were both still working full time. We had to take off time from our other jobs to go do that. Like, it was still in that very hobby phase. So it was like so incredible. But along the way, there's been so many great trips. I remember our trip to Whistling Straits was just, one of those absolutely incredible ones. We had it recently. We got to spend the night at Tobacco Road, and just like all these things keep coming up where you just think, like, how are we able to do this? And it's just so fortunate. We recently even had a round where we got to play with CC Sabathia. We grew up such big Yankee fans, right? And then we're just like, the whole time is a pinch me moment, because you're like, dude, we're just casually like playing 18 holes with CC Sabathia right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it blows your mind. So it's very hard to identify just one. And there's still so much ahead of us. And that's the cool thing about golf. Golf is a sport that unlike any other, it's played under so many different venues. It includes so much travel. And then with travel comes so much experiences beyond the course, the food, the people. And those are the things that we're really starting to appreciate more than ever now. And that's what we're trying to bring more into our content, because we realize, like, you go on a buddy's golf trip for the golf, but you also go to connect with your friends, share experiences, go and see new places, eat new food, meet new people. Golf is a sport that brings so much of that, more than I think any other sport does. So it's just appreciating that all the time is what continues to drive us forward.
Yeah. Well, you guys are doing an awesome job of telling those stories, and again, really appreciate the time. Those listening can obviously check them out on really everywhere, as we've discussed, podcast, YouTube, but all under the Golficity handle. So Mike, Frank, really appreciate the time, and looking forward